by the Department of Materials Science and Engineering, University of Moratuwa, University of Baoji University of Arts and Sciences, China, and Hokkaido University, Japan. The workshop focuses on advanced instrumental techniques and future advanced materials. Advanced instrumental techniques such as scanning electron microscopy, transmission electron microscopy based instrumental techniques are widely used in experimental research in various streams of science and engineering. The scope of this workshop is to acquaint participants with the fundamental understanding of the theoretical basis as well as the practical applications of these instrumental techniques, along with lectures and demonstrations on these techniques. Furthermore, we expect to raise awareness on future advanced materials for cutting edge research and new developments, along with lectures, research guidance, and project investigations. Today's workshop will be facilitated by Dr. Asha Galhenage, Professor Vasudevan P. Bichu, and Professor Dengwei Hu, who I will be introducing shortly. We humbly welcome our resource people to the workshop and make this chance a thank them for their generous contribution. This workshop will consist of 3 sessions, comprised of a live demonstration of scanning electron microscopy analysis techniques and 2 guest lectures on nanocrystals and transmission electron microscopy. All participants are eligible to receive a certificate of participation. To receive this certificate, you must engage in the feedback sessions.
Scanning electron microscope in a very simple and non-technical manner. Electron microscope use electrons instead of visible light that use in optical microscope. Today I'll give brief introduction about what kind of information we can extract from the same and the simple working mechanism, interaction of electron beam with the sample, SEM operation modes, then energy dispersive spectroscopy, its operation modes, effect of imaging condition. There are a number of conditions that affect on imaging. However, I will talk about the voltage and working distance. Then give brief introduction about sample preparation, then followed by application. Finally, the session will be ended with a live demonstration of SEM imaging. We can obtain 3 types of information from SEM. Topographical information, it means surface features of your sample. Morphological information, size and shape of particle that making up your sample. And then the compositional information, the relative amounts of each element present in your specimen. This figure graphically represent the SEA, electron microscope. There is an electron gun to produce electrons. Then those electrons should focus onto the sample as illustrated in this figure. For that purpose, there are a set of magnetic lenses. Then after those electron incident on the sample interact with the sample atoms and generate number of signals. Those signals are collected by detectors for the analysis. Here you can see the high energy electron incident on the sample propagate in the solid sample, undergoes elastic and inelastic scattering. These processes are actually complex, but they are well understood. So as a result of this interaction, number of signals are generated. Those electron-based microscopes use those signals to analyze the sample. Typical SEM features three types of detectors. One for secondary electron detection, called as secondary electron detector. Secondary electrons are electrons of the sample atom. After high energy electron interact with the sample and eject some sample electrons, those are the secondary electrons. Then backscattered electron detector to detect backscattered electron. Backscattered electrons are electrons of this high energy electron incident beam electrons, which are scattered in backward direction. Then another one is the detector for X-ray. I will discuss about the generation of X-ray under EDS. Here you can see the interaction volume. High energy electron, after entering the sample, it undergoes an irregular scattering path as shown in here. And from simulation studies, it was identified that the scattering paths are limited to this kind of interaction volume. There are two modes of operation, secondary electron mode and backscattered electron mode. Secondary electron modes use secondary electrons. They are products of inelastic scattering. Therefore, they have low energy. As you can see in this interaction volume, because of their low energy, although secondary electrons are generated all over this interaction volume, only the secondary electrons which are close to the sample surface can escape from the specimen for the detection. Here you can see the effect of surface features on the number of secondary electron ejection. You can see some features on the surface may cause to high number of secondary electron emission and this kind of flat surface. The secondary electron mode contrast is governed by the topological features, topological contrast. Therefore, with this mode, we can clearly identify some surface features. Here you can see the secondary electron micrograph of ductile and brittle fracture surface, and clearly you can identify the fracture mechanism by observing their images. Then backscattered electron mode. Backscattered electrons are products of elastic scattering, so they have high energy than secondary electron. Therefore, they can escape from more deeper volume than the secondary electrons as indicated in this figure. And those backscattered electrons are the incident electron scattered in the backward direction because of the interaction with the nuclei of the element atoms. The high atomic number may cause to high number of backscattered electrons. Therefore, high atomic number elements appeared in bright because they have large number of backscattered electrons. The compositional contrast is the contrasting mechanism in this mode. Here you can see the niobium dispersed in alumina matrix. The image is backscattered image. The low atomic number of the alumina, the cause to it appeared as dark, while high atomic number niobium appeared in bright. You can clearly see the compositional contrast in this image. Here let's see the difference between these two modes, backscattered electron image and secondary electron image. You can see this backscattered electron image, this micrograph is more flatter than the secondary electron image, which shows some 3D view. And the secondary electron image nicely show the surface features than the backscattered one. Backscattered, we can clearly see the difference between the different elements. Next, move into the energy dispersive spectroscopy, which use the X-rays generated during the interaction. We can explain the generation of X-ray using a two-step. First, high energy electron incident on the element electrons and kick off because of their high energy, leaving a hole behind it. To the second stage is to fill this hole, some electrons from higher orbital levels jump down to the this lower orbital level while emitting or ejecting energy as a X-ray. That energy is equals to the energy difference between these two orbitals. Here you can see the interaction volume. As the X-ray is electromagnetic wave, they can escape more deeper area volume than other two type of signals. EDS we can use to identify the elemental information, get elemental information, because this energy, the gap between each orbitals are the kind of fingerprint of each element. The signals from the X-ray display can be displayed in three modes. It can be displayed as a spectrum by using a point or area scan, or we can done as a line scan so that we can identify the element variation along the line. So this kind of graph we can obtain along the line how each element vary. Then as elemental map, we can assign different color for different element so that the image appeared like this way. This shows a typical SEM image. At the bottom, you can see some information. I will magnify it. And here is the scale bar. And this is the acceleration voltage, what you use to obtain this image. And this WD is the working distance. And it indicates the mode of operation, second electron. I will discuss the effect of acceleration voltage and working distance on the imaging. Here you can see the effect of voltage on the interaction volume. At low voltage, it clearly shows low interaction volume, small interaction volume, and low depth of penetration. Therefore, the signals which are come close, most of the signals come from very close to the sample surface. Therefore, you can obtain more surface features at low voltages. At high voltages, you can see large interaction volume and high depth of penetration. So it consists of more compositional information. However, most researchers are commonly use 10 kV or above without interest in their experimental condition. It's better to choose the value of acceleration voltage. The researcher should decide what is the information they need, what is the more important for them. It may be fine surface information or additional compositional information. Based on that, you can select the voltage. Here you can see the effect of voltage. This is graphene oxide, thin film on the silicon substrate. You can see at low voltage, the graphene oxide film can be observed, but at 15 kV, this surface feature of the surface feature, thin film, is disappeared. Here also one of the example which shows the effect of voltage. You can see at high voltage, some surface features are veiled. Let's move into the working distance. Working distance means the distance between the top surface of the sample to the objective lens. Usually we use short wave working distance for when we need high resolution and high magnification, long working distance for low magnification and high depth of field. So these parameters, voltage, working distance, you have to decide based on your requirement. However, shorter working distance may run a risk of hitting the detectors. You can see the detectors inside the chamber of the SEM. So shorter working distance may cause to hitting the detectors inside the chamber. So be careful when you working with short working distance. Sample preparation, actually for the same, it is difficult to define this is the way of sample preparation, because it's depend on the information what you need. Sometimes you may need to obtain surface information, sometimes you may need to obtain information much deeper from the surface, and sometimes you may need to see some grain structure like this. Based on that, you must prepare a sample. Here I will show typical typical requirements, common requirements. You can use the sample in the forms of bulk, powder, or thin film. So for the SEM, the most important specimen requirement for the conventional SEM is the conductivity of the sample. If the sample is poor conductive or non-conductive, we should apply conductive layer on top of the sample to prevent charging. The size of the sample limits by the chamber size, or whether it can fit into the same. And you should remove the surface contaminants, because if the contaminants are there, they get burned due to the high energy of electron. Then specimen must be stable in the vacuum. We know that the same operate under high vacuum. So the sample should be stable to that vacuum and under high energy of electron. The loose particles should be removed from the sample. Otherwise, during the processing, those particles will get contaminated with the instrument. If you are going to observe the surface feature or topographic examination, you must do the minimal sample preparation to preserve the surface features. Here you can see the sample in the sample holder in our lab. The sample stage is about 5 centimeter in diameter. There are small stub which can be used to mount the sample onto the stage. Here you can see at once we can mount 9 samples. But if your sample is large, then you can mount only your sample by removing others. That is the limit of the size. It's depend on the instrument chamber size. SEM can be used for studies involving the topology and morphological study of the sample. And if you need to localize the boundaries between different regions of chemical atomic number composition, or qualitative and quantitative identification of elemental contents of the specimen, we can use SEM. These are the typical applications of the SEM. We can use for failure analysis, cleanness inspection, especially for electronic devices. As they are getting miniaturized, we can use this cleanness inspection technique. Morphological and chemical analysis of particles, analysis of metallic inclusions, and then natural sciences and forensic sciences. For the natural sciences and forensic sciences, we cannot use conventional SEM because the sample contains some moisture. Therefore, some SEM integrated with the system for that called as environmental SEM. Here you can see the corroded mice tail, backscattered electron image, and this shows the oxygen map, elemental map to the oxygen. It clearly shows the oxide layered area, oxide layer on the top of the mice tail, corroded area. And this is the one electronic IC which shows the contaminations on the circuit. This example shows the used to inspect the wire bonding. And here you can see the use of SEM for morphological analysis. These particles are synthesized as two different temperatures. Then it goes to different shape and size. And this example shows the use of SEM for morphology and chemical information of the particle. The image shows the morphological information, and the information from the EDS, we can obtain the amount of element present in the sample, and this the line is scan information. Here you can see the fracture surface of steel wire. This fracture was happened during the cold drawing, and the cause of the fracture is done by this the non-metallic inclusion, which is size of about 48.5 micrometer. Um, this is just for your information application for the life science. ESEM image, which shows the three pollen. And this is one of the application in forensic sciences. This shows the molten glass solidified on tungsten filament that indicate when this incident happened, the bulb was inactive. Next, my last part is the live demonstration on sample imaging. Let's take to the lab. Okay, welcome to our same lab. This is Mr. Mihiranga, our technical officer. This is the SEM. Today we are going to image using this instrument. As I explained, here is the electron gun. Here are the magnetic lens system, and this is the chamber. And you can see this part are the detectors. So we will open the chamber and show a closer look into the sample chamber. You can have a closer look into sample holder, and that is the sample stage. Okay, the sample stage. As I mentioned, we can load. Now we have loaded two samples. Two samples. You can see those two samples. At once we can actually load 9 samples. For this demonstration, we use only one sample. So with reference, there are two samples. Now we will show you as I mentioned, this instrument work under vacuum. So to conserve the time, now before imaging, we have to vacuum the system. Now it is vacuum. Now it is preparing for that. These are the things we use to prepare the sample, and that is the sample stub. Okay, carbon tape, aluminum tape, forceps, and other things we need for the sample, blower for to remove excess contaminants on the sample surface. First, we should mount the sample onto the stub. For that purpose, we use carbon tape. It is double-sided tape. Our sample in the form of powder. Keep in mind to always use the forceps to hold the sample and wear gloves, otherwise your fingerprints may appear.
So now we are removing excess particles on the surface. Okay. Next, we will show you how to prepare conductive layer on the sample. Our lab uses sputter coater for that. First, we should load the sample. Next, then we have to evacuate the chamber. After reaching the pressure to the predetermined value, we can set the current and generate the plasma. Here we can set the time, the thickness of the film determined by the time in this system. Wait a moment until reaching the pressure, lowering the pressure. Okay, now you can see the plasma. Plasma is generating. That removes the particles from the target and deposit on the sample. Our target is gold vanadium. Okay, after the deposition, we can take out the sample. However, today we are going to use metal sample as it is conductive. We do not need to do that step. So let's move into our sample examination. This sample coating step can be escaped if you use conductive sample or if you will be image using environmental SEM. Here you can see the inside of the chamber in the image. And at the sample stage navigation also you can observe. Now we are opening the gun and focusing the sample. Zoom in and zoom out. You can select the area. Here is the image. We can at the same time we can see the back is scattered and second electron mode image. So we will see it. I think now you can identify the back is scattered image and secondary electron image. As I mentioned, the second electron image shows more surface features. So the right hand side of the image shows uh, second electron image. Left hand side image shows back scattered electron image. So oh yeah, now you can see the both images. Next we will move into the element map. So we can feed this second back scattered electron image to the signal from the X-ray detector, EDS. This is the signal displaying as a spectrum. So you can see the element present in the sample using this spectrum. Each line is indicate the energy, the electron movement between the orbitals. Next, we will move into the element mapping. And finally, we will show line scan as well. We have to select the elements based on that spectrum, so that you can see that different elements appearing in different colors. The mapping is done for different frames. The number of frames you can see as 1, 2, 3 like that. With increase in the frames, we can get a more nice picture. We can take all the elements at indicating at once, like this image. And if you need to obtain the element mapping by element, then also in the right side of the panel, you can see, you can take any things you interested area. Very useful information can be obtained. Okay, no? Shall we move into the line scan? Now we have to given the line. along that line, we can see the variation of our element. You can see the scan elemental variation along the line. The accuracy actually depends on your speed of the scanning. It clearly shows the variation of elements along different regions of the sample. This can be, we can use this to analyze some inclusions. If there is some inclusions on your sample, it shows different elements. When we do line scan, we can identify it.
Thank you, Madam and Mr. Mihiranga, for demonstrating the same techniques in such a simple and understanding way. And we have a question about eSIM. And now the session 1 feedback will appear on your screen. Please be kind enough to fill the questionnaire. While we are at it, I would like to ask this question from Dilanka. Dr. Galhenege, there is a question regarding eSIM. Now, Dilanka asks, if we use eSIM to image a biological sample, will there be any alterations to the structural buildup or the material composition of the sample due to the bombardment with high energy electrons? For instance, if we measure the hardness of a sample using nano indentation technique before and after the eSIM process, will there be any differences between the hardness measurements caused by the imaging process?
Yes, good question. Yes, that's why I mentioned that the sample should be stable to high energy electron. But as you are going to use eSIM, it's work under low pressure, and the sample is not destroyed like the conventional SIM. However, you have to maintain low voltage to minimize that kind of deterioration. We cannot say there is no damage to your sample, as they are very sensitive to electrons, those biological samples. However, it's depend on your operation imaging parameters, the condition what you have used. You can do the minimum damage or no or negligible amount of damage by properly controlling your imaging condition. So if you do in that way, after the imaging, if you use the nano indentation, that kind of differences cannot be observed. but it's depend on the energy of the electrons beam and the vacuum what you have used. The high vacuum sometimes may making the skirting like the probe size variation, and it may cause some poor resolution. However, may reduce the damage to your sample.
Yes, madam. I think it is clear to everyone.
Okay. Now, no any questions?
And there's another question. When examining powder nanoparticles, how can we prevent agglomeration? Depends on the sample size limitations. How can we prepare hard samples like metals and minerals? Actually, there are two questions, which is one is about how to prevent agglomeration in nanoparticles, and the other one is how can we prepare the samples and of metals and minerals depending on the sample size limitations.
The first questions, how to maintain the agglomeration or minimize the agglomeration. Actually, it is the part you have to do during the nanosynthesis. During that sample preparation, we cannot add other things. The better way is to use dissolve your sample in a solvent, and deposit that drop of that solution onto the sample stub and dry it, so that it form a thin layer. It may not be appear to your eye, but there is a thin layer. Then you can minimize that problem. And the next one, how to prepare sample for metallurgical and the mineralogical samples. Metal samples are conductive. If the sample is conductive, you can use the sample as it is. It's depend on the information you need. Sometimes you may need the grain boundaries, inclusions in the grain boundaries, those things. Then you have to polish and do the sample preparation like as what we do for the optical microscope. And for the mineralogical samples, since they are non-conductive, you have to cut, polish, and then apply the conductive coating on top of that. Then you can use. The sample size is for the same determined by the sample. There is a size for the given size for the instruments. So you have to check with your operator whether this size can be done. Usually the maximum of about 5 centimeter size sample we can do with our SIM. Is it okay?
Yes, madam. I think the answer is clear to everyone. And
Yes, madam. Thank you.
yeah, okay. So now we have two other questions. One is, are there any possibility to start instrumentation course modules for the postgraduate students?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, madam. I think this is related to postgraduate course modules. Asking, are there any possibility to start the instrumentation course modules for postgraduate students?
Yeah, there is a advanced instrumental technique module called as advanced instrumental technique, which offered by the Department of Material Science and Engineering. So you can if the program is running and module is offering, you can do. It is actually one of the compulsory module of that program. So definitely you can enroll for that module.
All right. Okay. I think the participants can gain more information through the department website as well. Right, madam?
Yes.
Okay. So there is another question. Can we observe any color differences through scanning electron microscope?
Color difference that means due to the element or the I cannot catch
Okay.
understand
The
questions.
question is from Sachini Bamunuarachi. So Sachini, you can further clarify about okay
Elements,
elements.
yeah, we can clearly see the different elements by different colors. I sometimes it may not clear for you during our demonstration session. The elemental analysis using the EDS, so we can see we can assign different color for different elements and see the where those elements in your sample. Okay.
Madam, another question. Can we have a good idea about average particle size through scanning electron microscopy?
Average particle size we can get roughly. There is some softwares as well, but this can be, you can use them as an approximation. But for if you need some high end publication like things, there you have to do separate particle analysis.
Okay, if there are more questions, you can post it to the chat. As for the moment, we don't have any other questions.